The violet storms of Nexus 7 painted the sky in shades of electric purple, casting an otherworldly glow across the crystalline desert. Raven Blackwood lay perfectly still among the glittering sand, her custom Nighthawk precision rifle steady against her shoulder. The interior of the precursor facility swallowed light like a hungry beast. Emergency illumination cast weak cyan trails along walls inscribed with mathematical formulas so complex they made Astrid's head spin. Raven moved ahead with a predator's grace, her rifle scanning for threats while portable sensors searched for any active defense systems. "Your shot did more than just disable the power core," Astrid observed, her scales shifting through shades of green as she analyzed the facility's response. "The entire network is reorganizing itself. Almost like it's waking up." Raven finished, pausing at an intersection. "Yeah, I noticed. Your people's intel might have understated what we're dealing with here." The Lyrian strike team had split up to cover more ground, leaving Raven and Astrid to investigate the facility's central research chambers. Their footsteps echoed off walls that hadn't heard sound in millennia, each step stirring dust that sparkled with trace elements of unknown metals. "The precursors didn't just build facilities," Astrid said, running her fingers along symbols that seemed to shift under her touch. "They created living systems. My people have spent generations studying there." She stopped abruptly, scales flashing warning red. Raven was already moving, pulling Astrid behind a column as energy bolts sizzled through the space they'd occupied. Ancient defense drones emerged from recessed wall panels, their crystalline bodies humming with deadly purpose. "Friends of yours?" Raven asked, squeezing off two precise shots that shattered the lead drone's central core. "Impossible," Astrid breathed, then caught herself with a quick glance at her human companion. "These units shouldn't be functional. The power requirements alone. Save the scientific analysis for later, beautiful." Raven's voice held that infuriating human confidence that made Astrid's scales ripple with both annoyance and something deeper. "Right now, we dance." And dance they did. Raven's impossible shots found weak points in the drone's crystalline structures while Astrid's intimate knowledge of precursor technology helped them predict attack patterns. They moved together with increasing synchronization, as if they'd trained together for years instead of meeting hours ago. "7 hostiles down," Astrid called out, her tail whipping around to stabilize her as she fired. "But their energy signatures are strange. They're not just defending, they're gathering data." "Testing us," Raven agreed, executing a roll that brought her up against Astrid's back. The contact sent an unexpected surge of warmth through both of them. "Question is, why?" The answer came in the form of a holographic projection that filled the chamber. Streams of data cascaded around them, forming complex patterns that Astrid recognized as a derivative of precursor code. "It's a test chamber," she realized, scales shifting to deep purple with academic excitement. "The entire facility, it's not just a research station. It's an evaluation system." "Evaluating what exactly?" Raven asked, though something in her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. Before Astrid could respond, the chamber's main doors ground open, revealing a vast circular room dominated by a structure that defied conventional physics. Energy patterns wove through crystalline lattices in impossible configurations, forming what appeared to be a bridge, Astrid whispered. "A bridge between realities." "Your people knew about this," Raven said. "It wasn't a question. That's why they really hired me. Not just for my shooting skills, but because they needed a human." Astrid's scales shifted through patterns of guilt and determination. "We discovered references in ancient texts. The precursors, they weren't just studying the universe. They were preparing for something. Something that required qualities they themselves lacked." "Let me guess," Raven holstered her rifle and turned to face Astrid fully. "Human unpredictability? Our ability to achieve the impossible through sheer stubbornness?" "Your species fascinated them," Astrid admitted. As you fascinate us. You defy logical constraints. You succeed where advanced calculations predict failure. You. She paused, scales flushing pink again. You make the impossible possible. The facility hummed around them, more systems coming online with each passing moment. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of combat as the strike team encountered their own challenges. So what happens now? Raven asked, stepping closer to Astrid. Because I'm getting the feeling this mission just got a lot more complicated than a simple reconnaissance. Now, Astrid's silver eyes met Raven's dark ones. We find out why the precursors built this place. And why they left behind tests that only humans could pass. Sounds impossible, Raven smiled, that infuriatingly confident human expression that made Astrid's heart race. Good thing you've got me around. The bridge structure pulsed with increasing energy, and new symbols began appearing on the walls. The facility wasn't just awakening, it was preparing. For what, neither of them knew, but as they stood together in that ancient chamber, both felt the weight of destiny settling around them. Whatever happens, Astrid said, her tail unconsciously curling toward Raven, I'm glad they chose you for this mission. Careful, Lieutenant, Raven's eyes sparkled with mischief and something more. Keep talking like that and I might think you're growing fond of impossible humans. Above them, the bridge began to sing, a harmonics that resonated with something deep in their DNA. The real test was about to begin, and its outcome would change not just their lives, but the fate of their civilizations forever. The Reality Bridge's song grew stronger, its crystalline architecture pulsing with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. Raven and Astrid raced through the facility's twisting corridors, pursuing answers while being pursued themselves by increasingly sophisticated defense systems. The strike team's gone dark, Raven announced, checking her tactical display as they took cover behind a sculptured barrier. Last transmission mentioned something about temporal anomalies in the lower levels. Astrid's scales rippled with concern as she analyzed the data streaming across her own systems. The facility's power output is increasing exponentially. These readings. She paused, silver eyes widening. They're similar to patterns observed during the Cascade event that ended the precursor civilization. You mean the event that wiped them from existence? Raven fired 3 precise shots, dropping automated sentries that emerged from the walls. That's not ominous at all. Their path led them deeper into the facility's core, where architecture defied conventional geometry. Corridors seemed to loop back on themselves while maintaining forward progress, and gravity shifted subtly with each step. The precursors weren't just advanced, Astrid explained as they navigated the impossible space. They had achieved mastery over fundamental forces. But they became trapped by their own logic, unable to conceive solutions that existed outside their mathematical models. Which is where humans come in, Raven ducked under an energy beam, pulling Astrid with her. The close contact sent electricity through both of them, but there was no time to dwell on it. We specialize in thinking outside the box. More than that, Astrid's tail wrapped around Raven's waist, steadying her as they crossed a bridge that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your species possesses something the precursors never understood, intuition. The ability to make impossible leaps of logic and succeed through sheer force of will. The facility shuddered around them, and new symbols appeared on the walls, warnings in ancient languages that spoke of thresholds and points of no return. They reached a vast chamber where reality itself seemed thin, like tissue paper stretched over an infinite void. That's why your shot worked, Astrid realized, scales shifting through patterns of amazement. The defense grid was designed to stop logical attacks. But you didn't calculate the shot, you felt it. I'm sensing there's more to this revelation than just appreciating my shooting skills, Raven said, studying the chamber's central console. Ancient machines hummed to life around them, responding to their presence. Astrid moved closer, her natural bioluminescence casting shifting patterns across Raven's skin. The precursors foresaw a threat, something that operates outside the bounds of conventional physics. They built this facility to find a species capable of facing it. And your people knew this when they hired me? Raven turned to face her companion, close enough now to feel the heat radiating from Astrid's scales. We suspected, Astrid admitted, her tail unconsciously curling around Raven's leg. But we never imagined, you exceeded every parameter. That shot you made? Our best predictions gave it a 0% chance of success. You know what they say about statistical impossibilities, Raven smiled, reaching up to trace the luminescent patterns on Astrid's face. They're just humans waiting to prove math wrong. The moment was interrupted by a massive surge of energy from the reality bridge. The chamber's displays erupted with urgent warnings as spacetime itself began to buckle under mounting pressure. Something's coming through, Astrid's scales flashed warning patterns. The bridge, it's not just a research tool. It's a gateway. A gateway that needs the impossible to operate, Raven added, pieces falling into place. That's why the facility kept testing us. It wasn't about defense systems or power cores. It was measuring human potential, Astrid finished. Your ability to achieve what our sciences say cannot be done. The reality bridge's song reached a fever pitch, and through its crystalline structure, they caught glimpses of something vast and incomprehensible moving in the spaces between dimensions. The facility's true purpose was revealing itself, along with the reason the precursors had encoded their legacy with tests that only humans could pass. Whatever comes through that bridge, Raven checked her rifle, knowing it would be useless against what they faced but finding comfort in the familiar motion, we face it together. Astrid's scales shifted to a deep royal purple, the color of absolute commitment in Lyrian culture. Together, she agreed, taking Raven's free hand in her own. Though I must warn you, by my people's customs, facing an interdimensional crisis with someone is considered an extremely intimate act. Funny, Raven grinned, that special human expression that had come to mean everything to Astrid. On Earth, we just call that a Tuesday. The chamber trembled as reality itself prepared to tear open, but in that moment, neither of them felt fear. They had found something stronger than the laws of physics, a trust forged in impossible circumstances and a connection that transcended species. The real test was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just their fate, but the future of all reality. Yet standing together, human and Lyrian united by something deeper than duty, they felt ready to face whatever emerged from the spaces between worlds. Reality fractured like broken glass, crystalline shards of spacetime refracting impossible colors across the chamber. Through the widening breach, something vast and ancient began to emerge, a being of pure mathematical precision, its form constantly shifting through perfect geometric patterns that hurt the mind to observe. Well, Raven said, her voice steady despite the cosmic horror unfolding before them, I guess we know what happened to the precursors. Astrid's scales rippled with recognition as she processed the entity's nature. They didn't vanish. They evolved. Transformed themselves into beings of pure logic and order. The entity's presence filled the chamber with overwhelming pressure, its thoughts manifesting as complex equations that scrolled across every surface. The facility's systems responded, interfacing with their creator's new form. They achieved their ultimate goal, Astrid translated, her scientific training helping her grasp fragments of the mathematical language. Perfect predictability. A universe governed entirely by knowable laws. Let me guess, Raven's hand found Astrid's, their fingers intertwining naturally. That's not as good as it sounds. The entity's attention focused on them, its calculations growing more complex as it analyzed the improbable pair. Through the reality bridge, they glimpsed more entities gathering, preparing to cross over. They want to perfect our universe, Astrid's scales paled with horror. Remove all uncertainty. All chaos. All humanity, Raven finished. Everything that makes life worth living. The messy, unpredictable parts that lead to art, love, discovery. The chamber's displays showed simulations of the entity's plan, a cascade of order spreading across reality, transforming everything it touched into mathematically perfect forms. Organic life would be restructured, randomness eliminated, free will reduced to predictable equations. Your shot, Astrid suddenly realized. The impossible shot that started all this. It wasn't just about hitting the target. It was about proving that reality can't be fully predicted. Raven nodded, already moving toward the bridge's control interface. They built this facility to find species capable of introducing beneficial chaos into their perfect systems. But they're so far gone, they can't recognize what they're destroying. The entity launched its first attack, not with energy weapons or physical force, but with waves of pure mathematical certainty that tried to rewrite the probability of their existence. Astrid's scales flashed in agony as her biology began to realign with perfect symmetry. Without hesitation, Raven pulled her close, pressing their foreheads together. "Focus on me," she commanded. "On how impossible this is. A human and a Lyrian, falling in love in the middle of an interdimensional crisis. What are the odds?" The entity's influence faltered, unable to calculate the probability of their connection. Astrid's scales stabilized, shifting to deep crimson, the Lyrian color of defiance. "The bridge works both ways," Astrid said, her tail curling protectively around Raven. "But disrupting it would require something completely impossible," Raven grinned. "Good thing you've got a human who specializes in that." They worked together, Astrid's knowledge of precursor systems combining with Raven's intuitive leaps of logic. The entity launched more attacks, trying to impose order on the chaos of their actions, but their very unlikelihood made them difficult to predict. "If we reverse the bridge's polarity," Astrid explained as they raced against time, "we can create a feedback loop of uncertainty. But the calculations are beyond even our most advanced computers." "Then stop calculating," Raven pulled her into a fierce kiss, their impossible love introducing another variable that the entity couldn't process. "Feel it. Like that shot in the storm. Sometimes the heart knows what the mind can't prove." The entity recoiled from their display of irrational emotion, its perfect geometries wavering. Through their combined efforts, Astrid's expertise and Raven's impossible intuition, they began turning the bridge against its creators. But victory would come at a price. "The feedback will seal the breach," Astrid's scales shifted through patterns of grief and determination. "But someone has to stay behind to manually maintain the resonance." "No," Raven's voice was firm. "We do this together or not at all. There has to be another way." The entity was recovering, gathering its power for a final assault that would reshape reality itself. They had seconds to decide, their impossible love weighed against the fate of all existence. "You humans," Astrid touched Raven's face tenderly, memorizing every detail. "Always believing in the impossible. That's why I fell for you." The chamber trembled on the brink of catastrophe, and both women knew their time had run out. Whatever choice they made would echo across dimensions, proving once and for all whether logic and order would triumph over the beautiful chaos of love and free will. Time fractured around them as the entity launched its final assault. Perfect geometric patterns threatened to rewrite the very fabric of reality, but in that moment, Raven had eyes only for Astrid. "You know what's really impossible?" Raven's voice carried that uniquely human blend of determination and defiance. "That I'd let you sacrifice yourself after just one kiss." Before Astrid could react, Raven fired her rifle directly into the reality bridge's central crystal matrix. The impossible shot, guided by intuition, love, and sheer human stubbornness, struck at precisely the right harmonic frequency. The crystal didn't shatter. It sang. "What did you do?" Astrid's scales rippled with astonishment as new patterns emerged in the facility's displays. The entity paused its assault, its perfect geometries wavering with what almost seemed like confusion. "The precursors built this place to find something they'd lost," Raven explained, pulling Astrid away from the control interface. Not just chaos or uncertainty, but the courage to embrace them. To take impossible leaps of faith. The bridge's song grew stronger, resonating with both the facility and the entity itself. Through its crystalline structure, they glimpsed not just other dimensions, but other possibilities, infinite variations of choice and chance and change. The final test wasn't about sacrifice, Astrid realized, her scientific mind racing ahead. It was about finding a third option. A way to bridge order and chaos. The entity's form began to shift, its perfect patterns incorporating new elements of uncertainty. Through the mathematical symbols flowing across the chamber's walls, they sensed something awakening in its consciousness, memories of what it had once been, before the pursuit of perfection had stripped away all that made existence beautiful. They wanted to be reminded. Astrid's scales shifted to a color Raven had never seen before, a shimmering hue that seemed to exist between possibilities. Reminded that true perfection includes imperfection. That life needs both order and chaos to thrive. Raven pulled Astrid close as the chamber filled with transformative energy. Like a human and Illyrian falling in love? Statistically impossible, Astrid's tail wrapped around Raven's waist. Yet here we are. The entity's transformation accelerated, and through the bridge they saw its companions doing the same. The precursors weren't returning to their original forms, but evolving into something new, beings that could exist in the balance between certainty and chance, logic and intuition, order and chaos. Your shot, Astrid marveled, watching reality reshape itself around them. You didn't just hit the crystal. You hit exactly the right resonance frequency to remind them of who they were. The odds against that? Never tell me the odds, beautiful. Raven grinned. Besides, I had something they never calculated for. Oh? Astrid's scales flushed with anticipation. And what's that? Love, Raven said simply. The most impossible force in any universe. The chamber stabilized as the entity completed its transformation. The reality bridge remained active, but now it served as a connection rather than an invasion point. Through it, they could sense the precursor's gratitude, and their blessing. They're offering us a choice, Astrid translated the mathematical patterns swirling around them. We can help them teach others to find this balance. To bridge worlds and species and ways of thinking. Together. Sounds like an impossible job, Raven holstered her rifle and pulled Astrid into a proper embrace. Good thing impossible is our specialty. The facility hummed with renewed purpose, its systems reconfiguring to serve as a true bridge between civilizations. The Lyrian strike team, recovered from temporal stasis, would have quite a report to file. But that could wait. You know, Astrid's scales shifted through patterns of joy and mischief. By my people's customs, saving reality together means we're practically married. Married? Raven laughed. After only one impossible shot, one kiss, and one averted interdimensional crisis? Seems a bit rushed, doesn't it? Astrid's tail tightened around her waist. Are you saying it's impossible? Beautiful, Raven pulled her into another kiss, this one slower and full of promise. That's exactly what I'm saying. Above them, the reality bridge sang with possibilities. The transformed precursors had found their balance, and through them, perhaps all species could learn to embrace both the mathematical precision of logic and the beautiful chaos of emotion. But that was a challenge for another day. Right now, in a facility built by ancient beings to find the impossible, a human and a Lyrian held each other close, proving that some impossibilities were worth believing in. After all, as humans had been proving since they first looked up at the stars, impossible was just another word for, hasn't been done yet.